So, Apple Silicon, right? Well, we need to talk. So, in this year's WWDC, Apple announced that they are switching from Intel based CPUs to their in house own silicon or CPUs or SoCs, whatever you want to call it. But the important thing is why I think that this particular move from Apple can change the whole computer industry. Well, why you may ask? Well, the reason is pretty simple because Intel based CPUs are based on x86 architecture, but in the other hand, Apple CPUs are going to be based on ARM architecture. So, what's the difference between x86 and ARM architecture and why Apple isn't making x86 based CPUs? Well, the difference between x86 and ARM architecture is x86 is based on CISC and ARM architecture is based on RISC. And don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with technical definitions and differences, but note this that there are substantial amount of difference between those two instruction set. But the question is why Apple isn't making x86 based CPUs? Well, the reason is x86 is owned by Intel and they are not going to give manufacturing rights to Apple anytime soon. No, they are not. But the big question is why Apple is doing all of this in the first place. Well, to know that, we have to take a little bit of history lesson. In 2006, Apple switched from PowerPC to Intel, and the reason was pretty simple. Intel was more efficient at that time, but if you look back at the past few years, Intel's track record isn't that much good. They are stuck on a single manufacturing node for quite a few years, and yes, they are squeezing more and more performance from that manufacturing node, but at the cost of thermal performance. And this is one of the reasons of poor performance and worse thermal result in last couple of iterations of MacBook Pros. So right now, making Apple's own custom silicon is kind of the best choice for Apple right now. Well, now you know the basics, so let's talk about what are the benefits, what are the roadblocks, and how Apple is planning to tackle those roadblocks, and some of my concerns about this whole Apple custom silicon thingy. First thing first, Apple isn't a new kid when it comes to making CPUs. They are making CPUs for last 10 years, from their iPhones to iPad, even their Apple Watches. So I can safely say that they know quite a few things when it comes to making CPUs and even scaling them. And one of the biggest example is their latest generation iPad Pro matches, even sometimes outperforms their latest Gen 13-inch MacBook Pro. And Apple CPUs are quite efficient because iPhones and iPad doesn't comes with a huge amount of batteries, and even they last for a quite a significant amount of time. And not only that, the iPad I'm talking about, it doesn't come with any cooling fans or something like that, and it doesn't have any heating issue. Not only that, but there are more benefits of using their own custom CPUs, like their neural engine, machine learning, better security, video acceleration, audio enhancement, camera enhancement. Next, Apple can better optimize their operating system with their own custom hardware, and when they are using same architecture throughout all of their products, they can enhance the ecosystem more. And all of that sounds good in theory, but there are some definite roadblocks. First is the transition period. Apple said they need 2 years to transition from Intel to their own CPUs. Why, you may ask? Well, the reason is pretty simple. x86 softwares can't run in ARM architecture natively, but they streamline the process with Xcode and Universal 2, and by the help of that, developers can create two binaries in a single platform. And not only that, they are shipping their development kit or a ARM based Mac mini to those developers at the cost of $500, which is another interesting thing which I'm going to talk about later in this video. But the problem is, Apple said they will be launching their first ARM based Mac at the end of this year, and in this short span amount of time, not a lot of developers will be able to do all the work needed to run their apps or softwares in ARM architecture. So what's the solution? Well, here comes Rosetta, specifically Rosetta 2. Apple used Rosetta when they were switching from PowerPC to Intel. So what is Rosetta? Well, to put it simply, it's a app converter. You can use Rosetta to run x86 softwares in ARM based hardware, but there is a difference between Rosetta and Rosetta 2. Rosetta used to do all of its work while you are running the software, so the error rate was a little bit too high. But in Rosetta 2, it will do all of its work while you are downloading and installing that particular piece of software or application. So is this process foolproof? No, absolutely not. But the error rate will be a little less, and the demos they showed on stage in the form of Shadow of Tomb Raider and Cinema 4D, that looks quite promising. Honestly, the performance looks good. There are some problems, but Apple have solutions to tackle those problems. So what are my concerns? Well, if you haven't noticed, while they were showing off the Mac Mini's awesome performance, the ARM-based Mac Mini's awesome performance, they were using and flexing over their Pro display, Pro XDR display, or Pro whatever. But the thing is, those displays are 6K, and to run 6K display, you need quite a lot of bandwidth, and to get that amount of bandwidth, you have to use Thunderbolt 3. But Thunderbolt 3 is owned by Intel, unless they were using USB 4.0 or they were running those displays in 4K or 5K, which is very unlikely for Apple to do. So I will place my bet on USB 4.0. So my major concern was Thunderbolt 3 was a very important part of MacBooks, and now that it's gone, how will they do all of the things? So yeah, they can use USB 4.0, and like they have to use USB 4.0, and USB 4.0 is as powerful as Thunderbolt 3. So yeah, that is no longer a concern of mine anymore. But what's about those Intel based Macs? We have to use those as paperweight. Like, what's gonna happen with them? Well, don't worry, because Apple said that they will be supporting those Intel based Macs for a quite a long time, and when it comes to update and software support, nobody does better job than Apple. So honestly, these were my major concerns. So yeah, like, that's all good, but this is not a concern but a hopeful thinking that the future MacBooks are going to be cheaper. Why? Because Intel is expensive, but if you dig a little bit deeper, you will be able to find the estimated prices of Apple CPUs, and they are not that much expensive. They are expensive, but not that much expensive. And the biggest example is the new development kit, which is like the ARM based Mac Mini, which cost around only $500. And if you look back at the first development kit which they used to switch from PowerPC to Intel, that was $1,000. And not only that, for past few years, Apple is listening to their customers and giving what they want. So yeah, I'm really hoping that the future MacBooks will be a little bit cheaper. So now the question is, are we going to see more ARM based Windows computers? Honestly, I think yes, because as we all know, what Apple does, the industry follows. And the biggest reason why we aren't seeing more and more ARM-based Windows computers is the lack of apps and software support. And now that Apple publicly said that they are switching from Intel to ARM-based CPUs, I think those developers who are holding themselves back, not anymore. So now the question is, are you excited about those ARM based Macs, and are you going to buy those ARM based Macs when they come out or not? Let me know in the comment section. And if you like the video, hit the like button. If you don't, leave a dislike, that works for me. And if you want to share this video, definitely do that. It's totally free. And if you made this far, why don't subscribe? Why don't, man? It motivates me, so definitely subscribe. And this is Akash, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.